Well, the federal government is facing its second High Court challenge over the refugee swap deal with Malaysia. Sydney lawyers from the Mallisons law firm acting for an asylum seeker being held on Christmas Island lodged papers with the High Court this afternoon. The court action will challenge the government's right to detain people without determining their refugee status. John Stewart and Alison McClimate produced this exclusive report.
Lawyers acting for Ramazan Ahmadi say he's from Afghanistan and arrived at Christmas Island on June the 4th, almost a month after the government announced that new arrivals will not be processed in Australia and may be sent to Malaysia. Lawyers and refugee activists have spoken to him over the phone at Christmas Island.
Ramazan says he's an Afghan man who actually worked in Afghanistan for the coalition forces. He was an interpreter for the coalition forces.
The court action will challenge the government's right to detain people and leave their refugee status undetermined. Lawyers acting for Mr Ahmadi told Lateline it's unclear whether or not the Migration Act allows the federal government to effectively leave asylum seekers in limbo.
Under the Pacific solution, although people were moved to other countries, nonetheless their asylum claims were still processed. This is different because at the moment there is no assessment of protection needs going on.
There are now more than 300 asylum seekers being held at Christmas Island, who arrived after Julia Gillard announced the Malaysian people swap in May.
I think there's actually 341 people now being held separately. There are a separate category of people, all of whom have been told that the Australian government intends to deport them to Malaysia.
Legal experts say the federal government is in uncharted waters. They say refusing to assess the claims of asylum seekers may also be a breach of international law and refugee conventions.
I'm not aware of a previous situation in Australia where we have stopped processing claims indefinitely. The situation we're in now is one that is very worrying, both in terms of Australia's practice, the message that it's sending out to other countries in the region, but also internationally.
Last month, a separate High Court challenge was launched by lawyers representing a woman and her 4-year-old son being held on Christmas Island, who arrived after the May announcement. The woman's husband has already been granted refugee status in Australia. That challenge focused on the family's right to be reunited. If it fails, the woman and her son, both ethnic Kurds fleeing persecution in Iran, may also be deported to Malaysia. According to some lawyers, if either High Court challenge succeeds, the drawn-out negotiations with Malaysia for a people swap could fall apart. Tonight, a spokesman for the Immigration Minister, Chris Bowen, said that it was inappropriate for the Minister's office to comment on a pending legal case. John Stewart, Lateline.